I don't think it does. I think the wherewithal to play things through that, like, that's
That's
good to see.
unlucky.
This one, and again, this is something like you might see
Well, I
something
mean, you could say,
similar.
I would say this. Like, if I want to get really technical, and it's hard sometimes when goalkeeper's playing real well and something like this happens. But the bottom line is don't follow the player, follow the ball here and stuff like that. And she's drifting near post because she thinks the ball's going to get headed by LaRue. It's missed. Her player's dragging LaRue that way. She comes totally up in her stance. And by the time she realized that she's pulled herself out of the position and the ball didn't touch anybody, she can't go back the other direction. So that's a goalkeeping error. Right? It really is, because follow the ball, but she does so many other things well that I'm not mad at her.
Well, I'll say this. I think if you run this play against every goalkeeper in NWSL, I think more struggle with it and more give up the goal than save it. So error for me, like, I can see it, but I think I'm with you that she's definitely followed the players too much, but her feet, like, she doesn't really ever get set. You can see, like, from her dive. Like,
and there's really no reason for her to follow the players here. Sid is marked up. Sid is actually really never going to flick that ball on near post. And if she does, Berger should be able to cover that. So basically just get yourself set and see where the ball goes. And she's not. She's still moving near post. This is a goalkeeper error.
Well, and to hammer this point home, like, what you could see some moments like this in TST. But like part of the problem that this play offers is that this is a slow ball, and so it's a little bit of a trick for a goalkeeper to think, oh, there's no way I can get square back post. Like, that's an easy thought for a keeper to get in their head. They can think, oh, I'm just going to go near post because that's where the quick shot is. But now this slow ball, I mean, that's not even fast, but it's something that's like on a smaller setting you're going to struggle. But here, that's a tough play, but I think it says something about Berger's game that if that's what it takes to beat her, like, I think she could do better, but like, if it did,
9 out of 10 times it doesn't happen.
Yeah, for sure. And you can see on this play here too, like, she's where she wants to be. Not the most difficult play, but
no, like, she's a little on her heels and everything. But this is where you say it's a kick save, and it's in tight. It's a good strike by Thompson. And it's a good strike by Thompson. Make the save with your foot. That's fine.
Yeah. I will say I do like that. And sometimes you get a little lucky with this sort of stuff, but the rebound, I mean, gets sailed out. You see sometimes on this sort of stuff that they make a great first save, but
it just drops right to the top of this penalty spot. Yeah.
So I think I'll give her some credit. You never really know with this sort of stuff, but it was a way to push and parry even with your foot, where a ball covers distance and gets.
I don't think she tried to do that.
I feel like. I
think you're giving her too much.
No, maybe I just lean out a little bit and like give it that lift. And so maybe I'm.
I think you're giving her too much here. There's no way. I think it's no way.
It's a good save. That's fair. I think it's the last two here, and all these will be a little bit familiar. This is a little clunky, but I think she kind of knows where she wants to be, and at the very least, she can kind of figure out, okay, well, I've made the mistake here. What do I need to do now? And she kind of gets back to where she wants to get. It's not really clean, obviously, on the movement and the rebound kind of.
No, and I think Thompson gets unlucky here, to be honest with you. I mean, look, Berger does the right thing. What do I always say? I always say, don't follow one mistake by another. The mistake here is pulling herself out of position, right? So she takes this step. That's the mistake. That's a mistake, right? If you're not going to get it, then immediately drop in with your depth. But instead of staying out or still trying to go and make the save, which you see a lot of goalkeepers do, even though they'll be like, oh, I'm late, I'm off. She gives herself some depth, so she's in somewhat of a position. And it puts it, that's the only reason she's there to make that save, is because she does make up for it that way. Thompson's got to do, better on that. Head the ball down, it's a goal. Head it left or right, it's a goal. She headed right into the gut. But at the same time, right there, she gives herself a chance to make the save.
Well, and I definitely think, this is one that Thompson's probably kicking herself about. She knows, like, if I just put that like a foot or two to the either side, she's scoring that. But I think it goes to shows, like, if you put yourself in the right spot as a keeper, even if like your footwork's not great and like the decision
good things happen.
You give yourself a chance if you double down on mistakes. Like, I'm not saying that never works.
No, good things happen. But like I said, you made the one mistake.
Yeah.
This is why Berger's another level. And I can take 10 other goalkeepers in the NWSL that would have continued on and tried to get to this ball.
Yeah.
and said, okay, I'm coming off late. Let me keep going. And then they would have had the whole missed the debacle, been out of the game, and that would have been an open header into an open net. And instead, Berger said, darn, I shouldn't have come, or I'm coming late. Let me at least get myself into position in some kind of depth to see what happens.
Yeah.
So I give her hats off on making up for the mistake on this one.
Yeah, those 10 other goalkeepers, they'd be running into their own player, and then
absolutely.
Then the classic, like, why are you hitting? They're both looking at each other, like, why are we running into each other? But they're mad at.
Yeah, they're coming up. They're not holding on to the ball. I bring up Nair's corner kick. I'm going to bring that up. Like, like she's coming out. She doesn't. Why? Like, it's just a mess. Like, and
I'll pull that clip for next week. We'll pull
yeah.
Yeah. And then last one for this play. This was a 2-1 win for Gotham, and this is the sort of stuff that, like, I feel
that's TST.
That's TST for sure. And I think this is kind of a product of, like, it's easy to start adding a narrative on this stuff. I think if you watch this play in isolation, you're like, okay, yeah, I get, it's a little lucky. But when you're making saves, you're feeling good. Like, it's easy to say, like, oh, they're impossible to beat. There's all these crazy narratives that come up. So I don't know what's all to take from this, but she's makes a save, and
I'll tell you what to take from that. This is when a goalkeeper's dialed in to me, right? Yeah. When you're dialed in and you're seeing that ball, that shot the whole way. Now there's a little bit of a deflection here, but you're so dialed in, your eyes are on that ball. You can change your body shape and get whatever you can get to it. And that's being like, you have a lot of goalkeepers that would have thrown themselves far post and never been in a position to make the save. She has the wherewithal to still start leaning far post, because she's leaning across her body, but then you see the lean on the right foot. Now it gets deflected, but she's like, I can still catch my body and still make a save. I would say 9 out of 10 goalkeepers are flying to that far post right now, and that gets, and it's like, it was deflected. Nothing so-and-so could do about it. Guess what? There is something you could do about it, because it was just done.
Yeah. Well, this is that level of complexity that, like, it's tough to get without game time, without, she sees this, and part of her, whether she's actively or subconsciously thinking it, like, you see enough of these situations that, like, hey, something could happen before the ball gets to me, after the shot. Like, it can easily get deflected. I don't know. I've seen this a lot this year as well, where these defenders, like, I
don't know what the hell they're doing.
There's a line of defenders between the ball and the goalkeeper, and it's like, why are there 2-3 defenders in a line? Like,
but not like, yes, you've got yes, last minute pressing the shot, but this should be pressure cover balance. So why is, and by the way, this has nothing to do with offsides, because if this is the worst offside traps ever, if you look at it. So that has nothing to do with it. There has to be more of a commitment, like, and the distance of the defense right now from the shot. But that being said, she recognizes that this, like you said, could go anywhere, because I have so many defenders in front of me.
Yeah. Which at some point you're like, please just get out of the way.
Get the hell out of the way. Yeah.
Let me do my job. Yeah. Well, some stats I wanted to throw at you here from Berger's time. So she's played 8 games. 6
This
wins.
is great, because I actually have to call Berger on Wednesday.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so 8 games under her belt with this season.
So email me the stats.
Okay. Has yet to lose. 6 wins, 2 ties, but Gotham's only averaging a goal and a half a game. So as a goalkeeper, if you kind of know at a certain point,
it's not Kansas City.
Yeah, we're not scoring a ton of goals. Like, if I give up one goal, like, that might be it. Like, we don't have a lot of wiggle room here. So she's given up 4 goals in 8 games. So she's obviously done very well for herself, and team defense has done well. But there is a bit of pressure. And I think as a goalkeeper, when hey, like, I can't really afford to have mistakes, that's a real litmus test of, like, hey, can you take that weight and that responsibility and play with that? And I think sometimes you see goalkeepers, they think, I can't give up one mistake. Like, it's impossible task. It's like, well, it's not impossible. It's tough, but but
I don't know if I ever thought that way as a goalkeeper. Like, I also played for the US, but I played for Rutgers. And so it was never, I don't think I ever went in with the mentality of, I have to, like, I can't, but it was, you knew you influenced the game. Like I knew every game, how I played influenced the game. But I never went in with the mentality like, oh, I can't give up a single goal because we can't score. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think I thought about it that way. I just thought that I'm important to this game. Like, I think when you play, like I said, okay, here's an example. Kansas City, right? Okay. Like,
hey, I have pink on again.
What about Kansas City?
I don't fucking know. like, I don't know. We got to play fucking Orlando on Sunday. So I'm just like, we can get out of Orlando with 3 points. That game is fucking huge, dude. Didi's gonna be freaking busy because every time Banda touches the ball, she scores a goal. So
we are live on the air, so this is getting.
Oh my god! Oops.
Hilarious.
Hey, gloves off.
We're live on what?
We're live on everything.
Oh no.
Gloves off there, Sosk.
Well, listen, it's true, and I think we can come out with the win. And I'm not just dialing that back. I do think so. I mean, I'd like to see Sid and the kids play again. So I'd like all four of those guys, Sydney, Curry, but I'm not sure if Curry's 100. She's amazing, Madison Curry. She's just amazing.
Wow,
Princeton.
It's definitely a league where top and bottom, like, either team can win. Obviously one's going to win more, but
I'm like, all of a sudden 10,000 people are watching this podcast and I just said that. That's
writing this down. Saskia said.
All good. All good. Well, all right. It's 11:59. Make sure everything's good to go here. It is recording. That's a positive.
Yeah, when you repost that, edit that out, please.
Yeah, I will indeed.
And by the way, first. That's the other thing.
Yeah. Let's get this going. Here we go. Ready, Bill? In 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back to Gloves Off. We had a special edition yesterday that we decided to keep to a very small community, and we love that conversation so much. We're going to run it back here. So, and this time we're also going to record it and let other people see it. So, yeah, Sosk, how are we doing over there?
We're doing good. Getting ready to head out to call Sunday's game, like we were just talking about. If you're tuning in just now, Angel City against Orlando. Huge game. Orlando, 13 games undefeated. Banda has scored 10 goals in her first 10 games. And, but I think the way Angel City's showing right now, that they can get out of there with 3 points. So
it does feel like Banda.
I think Howard Cheech is going to be busy. I do. But I think she's up to the task. So
yeah. Well, it does feel like Banda has like the easy mode turned on at times, of just like what she can pull off at times. So
but the way the influx of the South African players, the African players into the league has just been incredible. Everybody's producing, and it's fun to watch. I know it's the other team technically, but I have to call it neutral. But it's fun to watch and it's exciting. And players like that, she right now is making an argument for herself. I think Barbara Banda is for, the Ballon d'Or. Like as you have to consider that. Obviously with goes into that as well as the Olympic, like stuff like that, like international performances. But I think as far as like in any league going, you walk into a league and you are 10 goals in the first 10 games you've played in, and not to mention the assists and the effect that she's had on Marta and other players around her and stuff, like it's something to be said. Like hats off. Yeah, no, it's one of those things where when you step up to another level, that's a real litmus test. And you see a lot of players fold, but you also see few players who actually get better as the level goes up. I think this is a great example where, it's hard to not say, hey, that's fun to watch. It's exciting. Yeah. And, you put a player like that and you put better players around her, and now she's even better. You know, and like you said, some players fold. Some players, there are plenty of players in history in every sport. You even think about football and quarterbacks, like, they fold, making it when they hit the NFL. And so I think like to watch her and other players thrive in this league because of the quality of players that are around them is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the top players in the league, that's my great transition for the day.
You like that? Good job.
We're going to be talking about the U.S. roster drop. And I'm going to go ahead and pull it up here. So for some people may not know, there's only 18 players that get a spot with the Olympic roster. For World Cup, you get 23. So for the goalkeeper spots specifically, you've got 2, and then you've got at the bottom there an alternate listed for a couple different positions there. But I think immediate reaction, and I know there's a lot of different takes on this and a lot of different thoughts on kind of where things stand with our goalkeeping pool. You have to have been someone who's not watching the league, in my opinion, to not put Jane Campbell at least in the roster, if not the number 1 spot. So for me, this is really disappointing. And then there's a few things we'll go through today, but there are 3 things that are really disappointing with this roster release. Like number 1, gloves off, talking goalkeeping here. Like I can't overlook Campbell. And I think if it were my dime, it's Campbell and Hott for me, just when I think of performance. Now I understand Nair brings a lot of those intangibles, but for me, like this is a real missed, not opportunity, but just a missed mark of, hey, are we really rewarding the top players here? Are we really getting the top talent on the roster?
Yeah, and I understand Hott because, I mean, if you look at who's been in camps, like, and stuff, but I agree, if you're going on performance right now, this surprised me as well. And I would have Campbell, and I understand Nair. And the reason I say that is because I know that she rises to the occasion in major tournaments, and that there's something to be said for that. And she is not performing well for Chicago. And last year we could have said because Chicago wasn't performing well, and they basically were just having a transitional nightmare last year. And she was like a Jane Campbell in a sense of making 12 saves a game. But I think that, and I know we'll go over it. I think that she's not 100% a listener right now. And I feel Casey Murphy's not 100% Casey Murphy right now either. And this is a place where Jane Campbell deserves to be in that 18 and 100%. And I know that she's the alternate, and the alternate is a really crap. It's a hard place to be. I was an alternate for the Olympics. It's not a fun situation, and and some of these players don't know that. It's an experience. Like I had the experience here in the US, and we weren't allowed to train with the team. There were 4 of us. We were off training away from site in Georgia. We were actually at Clemson training and living at Clemson, and then we would drive into Athens for events and stuff like that. We weren't in the Olympic Village. We were at the stadiums. We were on the sideline for when we won the gold. But it's a tough experience. And I feel that I like, as far as the alternates, bringing in younger players so they get that experience as far as going to Paris, understanding what goes in and all the fun and hoopla around it. We weren't in the opening ceremonies. So there's a lot of things that you miss out on as an alternate that are tough emotionally for a player. But I like Croy Bethune being in there. I understand Lynn Williams. I don't think Jane Campbell should be there. I think Jane Campbell should be in the top 2, and then maybe a Hott as an alternate. And that and look, Casey, I'm good friends with Casey, alums at Rutgers and stuff like that. But I just don't think that that's where her game is right now. And I do agree with you. Like this is kind of like, it's an interesting take on things because you leave an Alex Morgan off, right? So if you're saying that you're bringing goalkeepers because of their stability and what they've brought to the team over years and years and years, then where's an Alex Morgan in that argument? Now, that being said, I agree with the forwards and everything she has on the team, because basically every single one of those forwards is producing. I mean, period. They've all been scoring goals, multiple goals. I mean, Lynn Williams as an alternate, just passed the NWSL record. And so I think, Crystal Dunn's Crystal Dunn. She can play anywhere, which with a small roster and that many games in a short amount of time, you need you use her in other places. So you need that. But Trinity Rodman, Jaden Shaw, Sophia Smith, Swanson, like all of those guys are producing goals every weekend. Alex Morgan hasn't scored.
Yeah. Well, and it's like the reverse problem. Your forwards, like you're kind of stacked. You've got a lot of competition for those spots. Your goalkeeping, if we're being honest, we talked about this a few weeks ago. Like we don't have a lot of people playing well. And I understand leaning back on past moments. And I think this is what we saw in 2007 with why Scurry got thanks, Magid. why Scurry got the nod because of past performances against Brazil specifically. I understand that. But at some point, you really I think my concern is when you don't start putting in people positions to have a chance to succeed based off their performances. So in this case, Campbell doesn't really have a chance to succeed here. What does that say to the team? I don't know if you can look back on your time with
2007. I don't agree with that move. Look, I love Bri. Obviously, we played together for 10 years. Like, I think it was a strange move in 2007 because you didn't do it leading up. Like you didn't do it in front. Like you didn't set that precedence that like certain games I'm gonna give Bri the nod because she has a track record. Like you had that opportunity leading up to that tournament. It was World Cup to the tournament. I think Solo was playing well and was in a rhythm, and so obviously what happened from that was a debacle in itself, which was ridiculous. The reaction from Solo and everything like that was just stupid. And live and learn, and that's people got fired, people got sent home on planes by themselves, stuff like that. But it's true. But I think I don't agree with this goalkeeping move. Like I don't. And I mean, I know we have some clips and stuff like that, and you're going to see why. And the reason is because look, we can sit here and we can analyze these goalkeeping clips. So is the rest of the world. So when you come into a game right now, you're going to see that, Nair's not 100%. So if Nair's going to be your starter and stuff like that, she's giving up goals on distribution. She's too far near post and out of position, getting beat far post, which is something I've talked about throughout her career. Her timing is off coming on balls. The service balls she's been getting into the box, she's not been clearing properly. And this is repetitive. So this isn't something that happened once and you're like, oh, okay. This is something that continuously is happening. So other teams from around the world are going to see this and they're going to say, hey, listen, you know what? Overload the box. Overload the top of the six, drive a high ball in, force Nair to come off her line because she's not clearing these balls properly. And she's either trying to do that basket catch that she did or trying to come out and pat the ball down and everything and not getting a solid clear. These are consistent flaws that are happening. And are you expecting them to be cleared up in 2 weeks? It's not going to happen. In 3 weeks, It's not going to happen. So if I were other teams, I'd say, okay, you're going to start Nair. Guys, drive down to pull her out of position, slot the ball, or shoot far post low. She's overcompensating near post and stuff like that. So you have to look at that. And I agree with you. Are you not watching the games that are going on right now in the NWSL? Look, everybody can be mad at me because, Listener has done some extraordinary things with penalty kicks and scoring and all of that. But we have to go back to why were we in penalty kicks in the first place? Because she came out and late on that cross against Canada and tried to do a basket catch in a crowd. And you can ask her. She messed up on that, so.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I'll say this: all those clips I showed, and I don't like pulling clips together. Like, hey, look at all the worst moments. But those are all in the last 4 months. Like, I'm not going back years pulling in clips. Like, that's just the last 4 months. And I watched her interview with Sam Mewis, and I actually really enjoyed the interview. Sam does a good job of getting players to really open up, and I like that. But it was a little odd seeing them skip over the foul that sends them that gives a penalty, that sends them to penalty kicks, she just goes straight to, wow, you're really good at penalty kicks. And she is, like, absolutely. And I can understand, we've seen it in the past.
Still don't understand that, but
well, I can understand bringing a goalkeeper in who's pretty good on penalties, which obviously Nair is. Like, and I understand like a roster spot. For
no,
that.
I understand that she's good on PKs. I don't understand why she's shooting them, and I get that. I get that she's got takes a good PK and stuff like that. But you're telling me that your field players, 10 field players, your goalkeeper who needs to be focusing on saving PKs is a better PK taker than your 10 field players. Like, then you have an issue.
Yeah.
To me, like, you have an issue. Let her focus on saving them.
Yeah.
You know, but good on her. Hats off. She scores them.
We'll take it. We're not upset, but
I'm not upset. I'm surprised. I'm surprised at the field players. That's all. I'm like,
no, you're absolutely right. And I think when I hear stuff of like, well, she's a leader, she brings this and that, I'm really curious to watch the U.S. backline play, because they know, like, hey, like this player's at this point, and you know this when you're playing with someone, you know who's playing well, who's not playing well, who has played well but is struggling, who might, like, you understand where all this stuff is, and you start seeing teams who don't have confidence in a goalkeeper to start drifting into the goal, and they start sitting in deep. And I don't know if that's going to happen because, one, she's not playing well right now, but also two, she's bottom 3 in distribution XG. So if you go to American Soccer Analysis, I'll give them a little pipe there. But
right. And so if you're another team, you're going to invite that back pass.
Yeah.
You're absolutely going to invite that back pass, and then you're going to high press the back pass on the goalkeeper, and 100%. And she's bottom 3 in distribution. A mistake is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm frustrated with seeing Campbell not get in, because that's for me. If you're going to talk about Morgan, not performing, okay, fine. You've got to hold that consistency though. But then also when I think of style of play, like, I don't know how we're going to be playing with Nair, and I hope it goes great. I hope it goes wonderful. But she's struggling with distribution, and not that it's awful, but I do think it gets a bit route one-ish of just kind of booming long balls and not being able to play out as smooth as you'd like. From a style of play, I'm really concerned. But I think this last point here with the roster, which this is where a lot of people have been dancing around, and I'll be honest on this one too. I haven't seen a lot of serious look at Corbin Albert's the whole, like, I don't even know what to call it, a debacle, I guess. It feels like a lot of people have been like, ooh, yeah, this is drama, this is awkward, but they haven't seriously taken a hard look. I think the first thing I heard, to go back to Sam Ewis, was she basically said, hey, if something's going to happen in public, we need to see something in public. So to catch some people up here, and I'll put some slides up, but Corbin Albert posted something, or reposted something on TikTok that was clearly homophobic. I think the one that really stood out to me was a preacher talking about how God had saved someone from being gay and saved someone from having transgender feelings. And so Corbin puts out an apology, which, in some sense, I think public apologies are tough. I understand that. It's hard to get them right. But and this is from I believe the New York Times here, but her apology is mostly centered around her actions and not the belief of, hey,
right, she's not apologizing for her beliefs.
Yeah,
she's apologizing for posting her beliefs.
Right. And what is, like, I think people want to walk a line like, well, you have to respect belief, you just respect this and that. The belief is that there's something wrong with people who are gay, and there's something wrong with people who are transgender. Like, that's the problem here. It's not that
it's not natural, that it's a choice, that a preacher can save somebody from being gay, that, you know what, and you know what I 100% don't agree with is Emma Hayes saying she's what was Emma Hayes' thing? She's like, people have come at, like,
she's like a nice kid. Yeah.
Well, she's a nice kid, and she's been dealing with a lot of backlash and stuff like that. And I'm like, you mean like the history of the backlash that the LGBTQ community has dealt with every day of their lives, along with transgender people? You mean that kind of backlash? Like, oh, I do not feel bad for you. And I'm going to put this in the, because I reread the Vanity Fair by Trinity Rodman. And I'm just flabbergasted. And this is why. Because you are talking about somebody that, let's put it into a different context and do it this simply. You're talking, let's say she's a white supremacist, You want me to be this blunt? What if she's saying this about Black people? What if this was racial, right? I don't think Trinity Rodman would be wanting to be on the same field with her or next to her. I don't think she'd be approving of her being on the team. What is the difference? What is the difference? Exclusion is exclusion. Hate is hate, right? And I don't care that she's young and she doesn't understand. It's, figure it out, right? But we wouldn't be okay with that. I mean, people take a knee all over the world in soccer, FIFA against racism, like soccer against racism. What is the difference? Yeah. They stop games because the Mexican crowd is chanting homophobic slurs. They call games off for it. But it's okay for us to stand next to somebody who's homophobic and basically on my team. So what message is that sending to fans? Like, oh, you're not allowed to feel this way, but we're going to give her a pass because she's good at playing soccer. Like, what? Like, I need somebody to explain the difference between her hate. I'm sorry, I'm going to call it hate. Her hate for the LGBTQ community and somebody's hate for Black people, and how that's different. Because, by the way, it's not a choice. I was born this way, just like it's not a choice that I'm Black. So I was born this way too. So you're telling me that if Corbin Albert had said this about Black people, that Emma Hayes would still put her on the team? What is the difference? Somebody explain to me the difference. And it's not acceptable. And you know what? She's not Messi. And even if she was, he shouldn't be on the team either if he was racist or homophobic. And there are other players out there. And so I am personally offended by it. And I'm offended by the fact that, number one, we'll help deal with this behind closed doors. What? Like, no, she put it out in public. Deal with it in public. I agree with Sam Muse on that. No, you can't backtrack this. Well, people aren't looking at it from that context. I'm sorry.
No, and it feels like Emma Hayes is, from my perspective of just what I've read, it feels like she's trying to handle a problem. She has had no prior thought of like, oh, what if this happens? It's just kind of like, hey, everyone, she's a nice kid. She's had a hard time. Like, let's move forward.
She's had a hard time. You want to talk about a hard time? Being half Black and a lesbian. Yeah. Try that for a hard time, right? Well, I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry for me, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. That's like, it feels like there's a real lack of understanding of the ripples that ripple out. So you've invited a problem into a locker room that is so team based in the sport. It's not like tennis where it's just you out there. Like, you're on a team, so you've invited a problem into the locker room. You've invited a problem onto the field, but now you've also sent a message to the fan base, which is very, very pro LGBT.
Absolutely, 100%.
You go to games, you see tons of pride flags being flown by people who aren't LGBT, and like that's the type of environment, which is really, really cool to see. Very,
inclusion.
Very inclusive. Yeah, and so now you're telling those people, hey, maybe stop the booing. Like leave her alone. And it's like, what is
I think, and people are coming back saying, hey, if you believe in inclusion, then you like Corbin Albert should have a platform and, she should be able to speak her feelings and her beliefs. And I'm like, not on my team. Like, I mean, not like you can speak your beliefs. You can believe what you want to believe, but you're not bringing hate into my team. You're not, and it's not my job to teach you differently. Like, grow up, learn, go to school, go sit in communities, go to workshops, like educate yourself first of all. And no, because if you asked me to do that, if she was racist, which I consider her, it's racist to me. It's the same thing. So there's no difference to me. No, and it wouldn't happen. And that's where my anger comes from. I'm sorry I'm angry about it. But if there's a fundamental disconnect between the fact that, in my opinion, hate is hate, whether it's on Latinos or Black people or whatever it is, or gay people or transgender people, hate is hate. And don't agree with it. Don't agree with it, because it would be a totally different, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yeah.
So no, Trinity Rodman, I don't agree with you. I'm sorry. And if you look at it from that perspective, like if she was throwing around the N-word and posting a bunch of crazy, I don't know, conspiracy theories up or like white supremacist hate stuff, she wouldn't be in 1,000 miles of the U.S. women's national team.
Yeah. When you think of like, I don't know. I just keep your analogy there of like, what is the difference between this group of people or this group of people? I mean, I don't feel like I can say it better. Like you've got a problem there. You're trying to sweep it under the rug. You're trying to just move past it, and it's like it's cat's already out of the bag. We've already heard it, and your response is like, hey, like let's be hush hush about it. Like I get it. For me, it'd be a little different if Corbin Albert had put something up that was like, "Hey, isn't this aspect of this culture weird?" As opposed to, "Hey, there's something fundamentally wrong about people who
Uh-huh.
need to be saved by God." Like if you were to make fun of someone's culture, obviously that's mean and like that's problematic in a certain self. But that is a far cry from like, "Hey, these people are problematic and they need to change their lives." Like very, very
Or
different.
what? God punishing Megan Rapinoe because she's gay and that's why she blew
Yeah.
her Achilles?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, like flip it again, you guys. What if Rodman had gone down and she put up a post saying that's God because he's white punishing, Trinity Rodman because black people are inferior?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, that wouldn't hit so well, would it? Well,
No,
that's how
no.
I feel about the gay thing. So sorry.
Yeah. Well, I look,
Not
you
sorry.
always, well, you always like going forward, you want to minimize these things. And I do appreciate that the team is trying to be somewhat solutions oriented. It does feel like with some of the public statements, people are kind of handcuffed a little bit of like, well, we don't really know what we can or can't say. So it's going to be kind of boilerplate. And I appreciate the positivity with that, but you still got the problem to address. You can't, you can be as positive as you want. Once you've got a problem and you don't resolve that, that's just going to linger, and fans are going to remember that. I promise you. So I don't think the booze
Well,
are going
I'm
to
good.
stop anytime
No, they're
soon.
not going to stop. I'm really interested. I mean, we're going to the 25th anniversary game on the 13th in New Jersey, so the whole 99ers squad will be there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I am interested to see coming out to that game if they're going to be boos and stuff like that. Look, fans, when you hit like home, when you hit a personal note, people don't forget.
Yeah.
And unless you show some attrition, unless you're like, listen, you guys, I'm studying, I'm trying to better myself, I'm trying to understand and stuff like that. Apologizing because you posted something is not an apology to me. And I agree, I 100% agree with what you said. She didn't apologize for what her beliefs are. She apologized because she got caught posting it. Like,
Yeah.
you got caught like that. You got called out. That's not an apology.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I'm sure blow back anything you want, you guys, and stuff like that, but just try to look at from my perspective on that. Like it is, I'm sorry, it's across the board. Like you have to take it from other perspectives if you need to understand it better.
Well, we'll take a big sigh here. We're moving. We've got it out. There's nothing much to say about it. Now I'll switch gears a little bit because I did stumble on a wonderful documentary recently. So we'll change gears here. This is a documentary that really that got released a couple months ago. Kept on streaming, I think, on Friday. But it's called Copa 71. So if you ask most fans, like, what is the first international women's soccer event? Some people are going to say, I'd say probably most people say 99. Some people might know Women's World Cup 1991. This talks about a massive event that happened. It was essentially an unofficial World Cup, Forgotten World Cup here. This is the trailer here. You can go look it up if you want to hear the sound to it. But they've got past players here. They've got the film from it. So that's real. That's how it was actually broadcast with color. It was on the heels of the 1970 World Cup, both of which were held in Mexico. So they do a fantastic job of really highlighting the event, and not just in a, hey, wasn't this cool? This happened. But they dive into the problems of what people are saying about them on the lead in. They go game by game. They don't have film from every game. They do have at least one player from every nation in there, which was really cool. I think England was the most represented, but it was still very cool to just hear people talk about an event that happened 50 years ago and how, what resonates from it. But Chastain's has a
it's
pretty
interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, even Chastain's in there, and they show her the clip at the very, very start of the documentary. She's like, what is this? Like this,
Yeah.
like never even heard of this.
And hats off to Serena and Venus Williams and Alex Morgan for being the producers behind this and bringing this to light, because I didn't know about it either. I've talked to Michelle Akers. She didn't know, like none of us knew about this.
Yep.
And, it's interesting that England is one of the most represented, because we have to remember, because first of all, I have to go here, but Harry Kane, what the hell? Get your head out of your bum and realize that your nation has won a major tournament, and it was in 2002, and it's just called the Euros, which you're trying to win right now. And it just goes to, 5 steps forward, 5 steps back sometimes. I mean, look at Manchester United right now, men's kicking their women out of their training facility because the men are going to use that. Now the women are in trailers because the men's like $1 billion facility where they each have their own suite and basically like a jacuzzi in their suite and stuff like that has to be redone. Like, England it used to be illegal in England for women to play soccer. And so this goes to me, this shows that I don't understand FIFA here because you sold out Stadium Azteca, 100,000 people in 1970, what, 70?
71, yeah.
71, the year I was born, 1971. FIFA is a lot about money and didn't ring some bells going, hey, we've got something here. Like women sell out stadiums. And instead, it was like a whole rebuilding process. It's been a constant rebuilding process and trying to prove to people that there's a market and there's a monetary market for women. And we're there now. We're getting there, and it's getting even better. Obviously, paying your players isn't anywhere close. It's not equal pay or anything, but filling stadiums is. And we're seeing that across the board. And we saw that in England in 2022, selling out Wembley and everything like that. I'm sure, I don't know where Harry Kane was. Maybe he was on vacation or something for that month. Yeah. But the rest of the world knew about it. And I'm sure a lot of people in England knew about it too, because they're the ones that were at the stadium. So this is incredible. And like, I watch this with my jaw on the ground and just like say, there's such a history of women's soccer and what around the world, and like tournaments that people don't even know about. Like on the major stage, that are going on every year. Yeah.
Well, and I think that kind of on that note, my one, I don't know if critique's the right word, but I guess it's probably the only I can set under. But I wish they would have spent like 5-10 more minutes on showing this dot connection between kind of these early stages and why certain countries weren't even in the event. So US, Spain, Holland aren't in this tournament, the Copa 71. Why not? And I think some of us know those reasons for art, but I don't know why. I don't know what Spain was doing in 1971. Like, I don't know. So
I will tell you what you think now, and people listening think now about powerhouse soccer teams and countries like Spain, England, Holland. They weren't. Yeah. Okay. Number one, they weren't. And so, when we were playing, like even in 99 and in 95, in the 95 World Cup, the powerhouse teams were the Nordic countries. So we're Denmark, we're Norway, we're Sweden. Then you take China. And these are countries and Germany. And so these are countries that some still sustain, like Germany. But the Swedens and the Norway, Sweden still. But those were the powerhouse countries, and you have to look at why. And that was because women were given more opportunity and looked at more equally. They weren't banned from playing soccer. But the Brazils and the Spains and Holland, and that pains me to say because I'm half Dutch, they weren't investing in women's soccer.
Yeah. Well, and I think for people who, and I get annoyed when I hear this phrase, but when people say something like, oh, it's just a game, this and that, I would really recommend those people that either believe that or understand that's not true at all to watch this, because I think they'll really appreciate it. But there's this wonderful, I say wonderful, there's this really heartbreaking clip in there where one of the English players comes back and she's at some sort of like big public dinner, and there's a bunch of people there, and she gets called up on stage. She didn't know what was going to happen. She gets called up on stage, and they say, hey, like she just participated in the 1971 World Cup, and they just proceed to make fun of her. And then she talked about how like ashamed she was that people thought it was a joke, and coming back from, the World Cup where they, had like they were treated pretty well, big event, massive crowds. They come back and there's not one person at the airport. And
that was 91 for the US women.
Yeah. And
no,
just like,
absolutely. And you have to remember that FIFA wouldn't even call it the World Cup. FIFA refused to use the World Cup title for women, so it was called the M&M World Championship. And like, that's how ridiculous that was. They wouldn't, they didn't want to share the World Cup brand because it was a men's brand. It was, yeah.
Well, and you just saw with the MLB, they in the last week or I don't know what happened, but recently they took all the stats from the Negro Leagues and now have them under like the MLB kind of official stat. I don't know what you want to call it, but they basically saying, hey, the Negro Leagues are part of our history, and like they're pulling that in, which it's obviously been praised across the board and very, very positive response. And I think you could see something like this happening down the line. It's
well, I mean, we can't even do that here with the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame, and we've talked about that. Like, we can't even go back and say, hey, the entire 1950 men's team that won one game and it happened to be beating England. The entire team is in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
But the entire team from 91, from 99, and on that have won 4 World Cups are not in the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe by the time I'm 80 or something, like, people will wake up. I have no idea.
I would be, this is a little bit of a detour, but I would be okay with a hard reset on the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame, just because of how, and it's gotten better these last few years, I will say, but for the vast majority of the Hall's history, like, it's just, it hasn't been done well. And I was hoping the move to Dallas, like, they would kind of take it a little bit more seriously, and I think they have. But there's still just a lot of like question marks. You're like, why is this person in here?
It's and I guess Boys Network.
I understand not wanting to erase and pull stuff back, but at the same time, like, I'd rather it just be done right and correctly and well. And if that means you have to, get your pencil out and erase stuff, okay, fine.
Yeah, but FIFA needs to acknowledge the 71, and they need to acknowledge the other tournaments that came in between and built women's soccer. They need to have a reset themselves and say, yes, this was an official World Cup. And, you can right a wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, Major League Baseball did it. They did it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think it's very inspiring to see that. It's like, oh, like that is really crazy that the MLB did that. If you think about all the history with that and how it's been so entrenched, and for them to make that change, like, that is very crazy. But to just quickly, I just want to point out, and this is kind of the dot connecting that I wish the documentary would have leaned a little bit more into, because yes, we've got this massive World Cup in 1971 that, sellout crowds, and it was very, very awesome. It's great to see the footage from it, but it's actually one of many tournaments that's happening in the 60s, 70s, 80s. So wrote these down, but you got the very first Women's Euro in 1969. You've got a very smaller scale 1970 World Cup. The Nordic Football Championship runs from 74 to 82, which is with all the Nordic teams. The current Asian Cup, which is all the Asian countries, goes back to 1975. So Title IX is 1972, and you've got all this movement here. You've got Women's World Invitationals in 78 and 81. You've got a 1979 Euro. You've got all these little blips here, and they're happening across the world where people are moving forward in here, and it's all these small dominoes, and it doesn't happen all at the same time. And some countries are later, some countries are earlier. But that's the sort of, like, when I think of like the history, if we can connect those dots better, like, I think that
I think it'd be great. And part of connecting those dots, and they're not being connected, was because they wouldn't recognize them. Like, it was like, yeah, this tournament's going. I mean, I went to tournaments like, we would always go to the Algarve Cup. We would always go to the Algarve Cup. That was a trip, the U.S. team would take every year. And I took it. My first time I was a junior in high school, or senior in high school. And, those tournaments existed, but, whether they weren't identified, nobody, like, and that goes on the world governing body, to be honest with you. And yeah, like I said, you can right or wrong. And it's happening, and it's starting to happen and everything like that, but it's still a push,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, for our last bit here, I'm gonna, and I promise this from our last recording, but I'm gonna pull up just a bunch of plays where goalkeepers could have done better. Now, I'm only doing this because I felt like I was a little soft last week as far as being overly positive. So I'm trying to swing back a little bit and find this middle ground here. And it's not to beat up goalkeepers, it's not to push them down, but it is to have real analysis of like saying, okay, what is fair and what's reasonable to expect here. So I've pulled this and I've clipped stuff out here from something NWSL posted, so I just pulled it from them. But basically, these are just a few different goals here, and we'll kind of jump through a little bit here. But this is Berger at the start here, and you had mentioned in our exclusive call yesterday that you had found kind of a kink in the armor with her game.
I have found I believe I found a kink in the armor. Well, we can break this down several ways, but if you go back in Jones with that this takeaway and then the touch inside, but what you don't see on this replay and what I was actually calling this game, what you don't see on this is Joan gives Berger a head fake. She gives a fake like she's going to drop this ball into the top of the penalty spot, like she's going to pass it, which isn't a bad idea, right? And Berger bites. And it's the slightest of things to catch, but that's why we're goalkeeper analysts. But that's why Berger lets in kind of what could be considered a soft near post goal. Also, she's too far off her line. There's no reason. She's got a defender right there and everything. If she gives herself more depth, then she actually has time. Even if this ball is played across to the six, she has time to adjust. I think she's too far out and out of position. But the kink I've found, which is rare because she's amazing, so I want to say a positive thing about that. Although this was a rough game for her because she had the kickies in this game, which is very rare for her because I think her distribution is so on point, especially that incredible side volley she has. She just puts it on a dime. She wasn't doing it in this game. But this head fake, I watched and I was like, oh, so her body weight shifts a little bit, which is why she can't recover and go back near post. And it's the slightest adjustment. Now I go back to a couple other games that I've seen similar things with Berger. When you go back to the Angel City, Nabet cross into Sydney Leroux, Berger follows the players and doesn't follow the ball. The ball skirts through and it goes far post. So what I'm saying is is this a kink in Berger's armor where she gets the peripheral of her gets drawn by players? If that's the case, then as an attacking team, as a team coming up against her, I'd be like, throw a lot of stuff past her. Make those near post runs, cross in front of her visual on services, put somebody on her, pull off of her, see if you draw her attention for that split second. So she's thinking about the player or the play to come and not focusing on the ball. That's what I've seen in a couple games. So we'll see. But like I said, she's the best goalkeeper in the NWSL right now. So
no, in complete agreement. I think it's hard to put anyone else up there. Campbell's maybe close, but Berger's been playing very, very well. But I think your point of just the complexity in the play of runners, this is that. That's kind of the exciting thing when you think of the sport in the position of, okay, well, teams are attacking this way. How do we play against that? Well, goalkeepers need to do this. And then the attackers start thinking, well, the goalkeeper's going to do this. And so you have this kind of one-upping thing. It's kind of rock, paper, scissors in some sense, but it's getting more and more efficient, more complex, more difficult. So it's great to see. I love that the kink in the armor, quote unquote, is actually pretty difficult in itself to pull off. But
exactly. It's not like, hypothetically, it's not like you keep going too far near post, so shoot far.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a very complex kink in the armor to pull off.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Well, this is Katie Lund, who I've really enjoyed moments of her game. I think it's just consistency. And I think the big one I see here, and I see this a lot in her game, there's just so much movement. And it's a lot. And by movement, I don't mean like running around. It's just she never has like a pause or catches her breath a bit. So you see this play here, the two reverse angles here. You'll just see that she's kind of always moving a bit. Her feet are just constantly doing something. Mm-hmm. And it's really difficult because as this ball comes in, she doesn't quite know how this is going to sort out. Where's the runner going to be? What's the touch going to be? So it's a complex play in itself. However, if she gives herself a pause here, she can read it and understand what she needs to do. But it's a lot of like she's almost like too hyped up a bit, where her positioning kind of gets out a little bit from the movement, and You can see how she's leaning a little bit. She just needs to relax a little bit. And I think she can actually make that save. It'd be a tough save, but I think she can do it.
Look, this is nothing taking away from Kennedy Fuller on. This is it from Madison Curry. It's a great ball in. Kennedy Fuller just perfect run to the penalty spot and just like has to redirect this because of the pace that Madison Curry put it in on a dime to Fuller. Called this game too, but for Valley Sport. But I agree with you, and I think that sometimes she's overcompensating trying with that movement, trying to get across to the goal. She gets herself out of position even if it's by a foot, she gets herself out of position because of that movement, that hyper movement. She's not really set when she's setting and the ball's already been hit. Yeah. And so I don't think she gets the right power step in here. I think it's too wide for her because of that movement. She gets caught. And I do think it's a savable ball. It's a great goal. Okay, it really is, but we're talking about great goalkeepers. And if you want to be a great goalkeeper, these are the kind of balls you come up and you make the saves with. And I think it's a savable ball if your body movement is proper and your positioning and your set timing is proper. It's a savable ball.
Well, you can see how close she is to it. I mean, she's inches away from that. Like, she gets her right foot, even just part of her body figured out. She's going to be in a good spot there.
Agreed.
Well, here's a clip from Mandy Hart. I think they lost this game 6-0. And I'll be honest, I thought she played okay. I feel like sometimes you see a 6-0 game and you kind of think, oh, it's probably in the goalkeeper. I thought she did okay this game. This is the one goal in the game. I was like, this seems a little almost naive of just what's going to happen here. So there's a few things. I will give her credit that once she plays this ball here, she can tell she's already calling for the next pass. So the turnover really isn't on Hot here. It's a fine pass. She's obviously got space to play here. It just kind of gets caught away from her a little bit. Now the turnover
it's a bad first touch.
The bad first touch, and now she's scrambling. But you can see that you should be able to recognize as a goalkeeper, like, hey, what are upcoming potential dangers here? Right. And it just takes Hot a second, honestly, a second too long to recognize.
She's still not recognized that this is going to be a turnover. Yeah. Or potentially a turnover. She's still standing upright, walking she's out of position, right? Yeah. And walking, and you see her just kind of like, hey, what's going to happen? So this is being reactive and not proactive as a goalkeeper is the best way to put this. And so she still hasn't reacted. And when you watch this, when you move this forward, her next reaction is getting depth here. If she had already positioned herself properly, her reaction should have been to come and be big and because she's the last defender. But now she's pulled herself out of position. She's reset with depth and then she tries to come and make up for it. Then she tries to go down with the block save, which she's been baited to do. Right. Yeah. So Summer Yates is like, got the touch. She keeps the touch near her body. And then she's like, okay, come on, Hot. She's waiting for her to come. And she's like, all right, you're coming. Now I'm going to slide it by you because you're moving. Like, by the way, keepers out there, field players know this. Like, it's not luck. They're actually hoping you do this. Like,
yeah. When you think from Yates' point of view, I mean, she doesn't have a whole lot of outs here. Obviously, she's created a great turnover, but, she's getting – it's a quick play. She doesn't have a lot of time. She's got a very small window, but then also spatially, like, she's at a little bit of an angle here. This is not an easy save from both a mental and kind of a technical, tactical aspect. However, you've got things going in your favor, but the shooter's always going to look for the easiest out. So if you have a shape or if you have a space that you're off on, like, they're just going to take, if it's any respectable striker, they're going to take whatever space you give them, no problem.
Yeah.
So
the only space that Yates is going to take right here is the one she takes.
Well, she's able to take the space into goal, but then she's able to take the near post like shot. Like, so it's two things there. So for our young goalkeepers that love the spread save, I will say this because I've watched this back a few times now. If you're going to do the spread save, think about how your arm works. It's a lot easier for your arm and elbow to come up as it is to come down. Mm-hmm. And so this ball I think it almost brushes her ribs on the side as it goes in. It's very close to her body. But sure, her hands go up a bit and it's just under her arm there.
Yeah, and young goalkeepers out there, she's late. She's late coming. All right. So she should have been dealing with this before Yates got to take 3 touches on the ball in the box to set her up. Okay, so think about it that way. Like, because she was kind of lackadaisical walking back and not identifying, not being proactive and identifying that this ball is about to be turned over, had she been more proactive in her positioning and kind of assuming that and being ready to get a jump on it, this would have gone down totally differently.
Yeah.
And now she's late coming. And yet, like I said, Yates has 3 touches in the box to set you up, and she's setting her up, and she finishes it. So good on Summer Yates.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, she's very clinical here, but there's a few different outs here. I think you're absolutely right that Mandy's late, but also, if we're being honest, I think if she just gets set,
yeah,
and we talk about this all the time. It was like not making one mistake too. If she says, okay,
beat me.
I've dropped in a little too deep, maybe I take a step up and get set again. Obviously it's a big goal you got to cover. However, now you're forcing her to shoot towards those corners, whereas like she basically shoots us down the middle. I mean, it's
right because she's moving forward, because Hot's block spread save, she's still moving forward with momentum. If she were to set and get big and you say beat me, then it's quite possible she gets a tip on the ball, a kick save, or anything like that. She's set and she's like big, and now Summer Yates has to make a really quick decision because she's also getting bared down on by defense. And so by her running at her, Summer Yates is like, great, I'm just going to pass it by her because the momentum's going to bring it by. She's not going to make the save.
Yeah.
So, no.
Absolutely. We'll move on to this next one. Watch Hawk. We're on for the nighttime here. So it's Hogan's place here. So I've got 2 goals from her for a game, and this is all from last weekend here. So I maybe a month or so ago, I called for Alvarado to get the nod. Now, I don't know what training looks like. I don't know where Alvarado's game is. I don't know if she's even 100% healthy. I can't weigh on these things. But at some point, my concern is when you put a young goalkeeper out there and they're struggling and they're struggling and they're struggling and you keep throwing them out there. I think we've seen it. It's not really common, but you'll see goalkeepers who get thrown in the deep end a little too early and they stay out there too long. And now their career gets really rocked from it because they had a really, really tough time. Not only does it hurt them kind of resume wise of like, wow, you did really poor here, but also mentally of just getting blown up game after game and mistake after mistake. So this is one of the first of the 2 here where it's not an easy play here, but as this ball gets kind of redirected in, it's something that the problem for me isn't that the goal happens. The problem is that Hogan is really unsure of how to deal with it. Now, I don't mind her positioning here, but as this comes in for the redirect, it's just kind of a weird kind of swat at it of like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to kind of swat. There's no dive. There's no thought of kind of that other.
Just make yourself big.
Yeah. It's
like, okay. Yeah. And first of all, Labanta's a little nugget, right? But good on her. She had a great game. She had the brace in this game. I'm correct. But I agree with you in the sense, like, she doesn't really know where she's going. And I think it's a really awkward situation, this little header and flick. I mean, you can't take Labonta out from behind. It's kind of so quick. You can't really jump. I mean, my only thing here, this is really a weird situation. My only thing is if you're closer, maybe you get the box over top of her, right? You could come over top of her, get the box, or you're just big behind her. And now you get your positioning right because her positioning's off. She's too far near post. And so this goes down the center of the goal.
Yeah.
Right. So if you kind of get back and you're centered and stuff like that, now this just goes into your body. Yeah. It's a weird situation.
It's tough. And I think, even if, and again, I think it's a little off center. Like it's obviously not in the corner and her defender probably can make the save if I'm being honest, but
that's down the center of the goal.
Well, it's close to it, but I think this is, and honestly, I think the defender just whiffs on it.
I think if you're Jane Campbell here, what does Jane Campbell do?
She says, I'm going to solve this with athleticism, and it may look a little clunky.
No, but you know what else she's going to do? She's going to go into the goal.
Oh, yeah. She's going to start in the goal, and then she's going to throw her body.
Or she's going to get depth in the goal and then but she might come out with the save because of it. Now, let's say we've talked about that Jane Campbell move that she makes, and she got away with it against Angel City at the 103rd minute off that Messiah break, but that was a goal. And we talked about it. At some point, this is going to go across the line when she gets that depth. But here, Jane Campbell would have gotten depth and maybe come up with a save.
That's my least favorite thing about Campbell's game, if I'm being honest, how she just sets in the goal. Like, there's no room for error there, and
there wasn't against Angel City, and
Yeah.
that was a goal in the 103rd minute. So it ends up not being a goal because of the handball, which is what they're saying now. But I don't think that's what they said on the field. They said it wasn't a goal, but on prior, like really close ups, goal line stuff, it was a goal. And because the set was too deep in the goal, that's not my favorite thing either. And I don't know where she learned that from. It's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, yeah. And for people who missed it, we're referencing a moment where was it a corner? So there's a ball.
Yeah, it was the corner in the 103rd minute, and it gets sent in, and Messiah Bright goes up, and Jane Campbell gets depth, so she goes into her goal, and it hits Messiah Bright. It looks like it hits her head, and it goes right down. She heads it down as she should, and it goes through Campbell's legs. And because Campbell's in the goal, it goes over the line. Campbell sits on the ball. So it's hard to see that it's over the line, but when you see a different angle, you can see it's behind her. And then she kind of scoots it forward. At the end of the day, it hit Messiah Bright's hand. But
yeah. Well, and these situations where it's that one with Campbell, this one here, you've got a lot of bodies, and you're having to make real time decisions. So I understand that. I think the problem for me is her solution to this moment is just kind of awkward, like flap of the arm. There's no dive. She's surprised that someone's 2 yards from her. So that one's a problem. This is the other. I think they.
But I also think the weird thing is that, and it's hard to be upset with Becky Sauerbrunn right here. But what are you doing in the goal?
Well, I think she's trying to clear it, and it goes off her.
Right. But I know. But like this is if Sauerbrunn had held, then is Labonta offsides?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
but because whatchamacallit on the lower half's out of bounds, so she's not keeping anybody on sides. And then Sauerbrunn, because she dropped into the goal, and this goes back to your thing: is there a lack of trust in your goalkeeper here? It's a natural reaction. I know center backs and everybody like to drop into the goal and cover their goalkeeper's back, but in hindsight, right here, had you held your line off this header, Labonta's offsides.
Yeah, well, and also if you're going to drop in the goal, and you can't clear the ball out, I don't why are you there? I don't.
I mean, obviously it's, but you don't want to go. She's a legend and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think in hindsight, hold your line. Like don't drop in here.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. This is another goal from the game. I think it ended up being 4-1 if I remember correctly. But again, it's kind of a situation that overwhelms Hogan on a number of levels, both from the original cross, which she just gets outplayed on. I mean, she goes up for as if she has no pressure, doesn't handle it, and then she's just kind of walking around here of not sure what to do. And again, it's chaos. I get that, but that's almost like what Dickie did with her, how she blew her knee. Like you start doing these weird movements where your body's fighting itself and she's stumbling the ground.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying that she should have saved it. I think she should have done better on the cross.
She should have done better on the cross. And we're going to say this for all those young keepers out there. If you're coming, you've got to get some of it. Yep. Right. And I understand you're in a crowd, but then you have to time it properly. And this box should go back out towards the top of the 18, to the direction where the corner came from, to be honest with you. Just that's where your momentum's taking you. But you've got to get something on this. Number one. Number two, where's your recovery here?
Yeah.
So it's almost like that. Oh, I missed the cross. Well, now what do I do? Well, now, and it's almost like that pause, like, oh, is that a goal? But it's not a goal. And now because you're not immediately reacting and trying to reposition yourself, now you're behind on that. And then this just becomes a kind of confusing. Like, it's like, where do I go? What do I do right here? Where do I go? What do I do? And here, your entire team's in the goal. So guess what? You got to step up and be big right here. Yeah. And actually close this and try to get like something on that.
Yeah, I think they've got 4 on the line. We don't need a 5th one with a goalkeeper. At some point, like someone's got to be out of the goal. No, you're absolutely right. It's just team defending at the end of the day. Well, we've got a few more here. I know we're winding down, but this is a few from there that we haven't looked at yet. But again, not just hammering her, but this one's a weird play. I think maybe it gets a deflection. I have to go see another camera angle off this. But even if it does get deflected, Nair's got some space here to work with. So it's odd for me to see Nair end up diving the wrong way from something that she has a lot of space on. We're not talking about 2-3 yards. This is
right. So there's kind of no reason for her to, if it's deflected, but there's no reason for her to getting the jump on the far post shot. So if it's not deflected, because it's hard from the angle we're watching, and it's going far post, then just be set, right? Be set square. But she's not. She's leaning right, and then it gets deflected. If she's set square because of her distance from this, I think she comes up with that save even on the deflection.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's not far off her body. I mean, it's
Right.
it's in there, yeah. And it could be a good save, but it's a weird response to something that you're just gonna be like, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and fall over here. I think kind of another moment, just not really thinking out the complexity and the possibilities here. This ball is outside the 18, and she's less
Too
than
far near post.
yeah.
Right. So, and I've told my goalkeepers this in trade a lot. Why are you on the near post? Why are you hugging the near post on this? To get this ball in on a shot near post, fine, but you can be a yard off and be kind of half facing your near post and half facing the rest of the field and eating up that space. If that ball, even if it gets deflected off the cross and goes near post, you can make that save, right? It's just a step over and you make that save. But what you can't do right now is because you've totally committed to the near post and you're square to the rest of the field, right? You're squared up to the ball. Now you've just opened yourself up for the back for the slotted ball in the back post. What she does wrong here second time, right? So over hugging near post is she comes out and then realizing she can't get to the ball and then tries to recover. You've got to be quicker on this. You've got to know immediately that ball is out of your range, and your first movement has to be a drop step back across the goal for this ball. She does that, then she possibly gets a hand on this ball. But she takes herself out of the play twice here, in my opinion. Right there. And then now you can't recover for that far post.
And then, you don't want to go from has a chance to has no chance. Like, correct. And again, I mean, even you take away the first mistake of being too far near post. Let's say, like, for some reason when she gets in a situation, the way that she's kind of playing this, like, give yourself a chance to get over there. So yeah, you make it a beeline. You're running straight there. You're making yourself big. Do what you can. If they score,
and your line actually off that near post isn't directly to the far post ball. And this is what a lot of young goalkeepers do. And this comes down to angles. Your drop step has to be kind of on an arc into the goal. So you have to drop step and come into the goal and out to make this, and across to make the save. If you drop step directly on the ball line to this ball, you're still there's too much angle into that near post. Do you see what I'm saying? So you've got to do that. But it doesn't matter, because what she does by taking that first step up to try to get the slided ball, she's totally gone. Like the whole far post is open.
Well, and you think of how would this be different? I know this sounds kind of odd for some people, but what if she doesn't take a step at all on her first step, and she, instead of stepping, and she just waits and then takes a delayed better first step? That's going to be a better solution than taking a bad first step. So even if you pause just a split second to read the situation, I feel like this happens a lot on crosses, where if you just wait 1 second or wait a split second,
you have to take a hiccup. You have to,
and just kind of let yourself read the situation instead of thinking, oh, everyone's going this way or the ball's going this way, I also need to. I think this is one of those you see on crosses where keepers will step up and then it just dumps in over them. And
a lot of young goalkeepers do that. Their first thing is like, oh, everybody's going this way, so I'm going to go this way. Which, by the way, goalkeepers out there, that's the job of the field players, is to pull you out of that situation and say, all right, we're going to make this, we're going to post somebody up on the goalkeeper and they're going to run near post. And so we're going to get her, this is what I was talking about, Berger, we're going to get her to kind of flinch. The minute you flinch forward and the ball's going over and the ball is going far post, you're out of it, right? So you got to take that hiccup. You've of pause and then leave late, arrive early. Like,
no, absolutely. Yeah. So look, we're talking gloves off. Part of the reason that we go over the mistakes is, one, I think it's a great learning thing to look at a mistake that happens at the highest of the highs. We're talking about stuff in this last clip here with Nayer that is very, very relatable, and also shows how difficult it is if those top goalkeepers are struggling with that. So there's a huge learning component, but also just understanding of like, hey, we can talk about this and still be respectful and applaud when it needs to be applauded, as opposed to, Oh, well, let's just not look at the bad stuff. Let's only look at the positive stuff. So it's kind of twofold for me, but no, I loved it digging into this. I hope for our young
Yeah.
keepers, young listeners out here, like you're hearing, okay, like they're struggling with it. If I struggle with it, there are solutions, but also, you're human, right?
It happens. Yeah, it happens.
So
Yeah.
you got to deal with it. Yeah. So no, hey, I'll say this. I think this episode was even better than yesterday's episode. I think it was for a number of reasons.
The secret episode.
Yeah, the one that no one will see.
That we forgot to press record on. Yes.
Yeah. So this
That was
one
good
came
stuff.
well. Yeah, so it's good. It's good.
Right on. Well, I'm sure we're gonna have a lot to talk about after this NWSL weekend and after. Oh my God, we didn't even get into Copa America and all that, or Euro. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot to talk about next week.
A lot of soccer. No, it's good. It's good. Saskia, where can people find you?
You can find me at Saskia on the Union. You can find me at Saskia_Weber on all social media platforms, Instagram, and so on. I'm not a big Twitter person either, but it's there.
Yeah, you can find me on everything except for TikTok. I don't touch it. That's for young people.
Oh no, not Twitter, TikTok. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I don't. That's all. It's all for the young people. I don't mess with it. But no, it's good. Yeah, we'll catch everyone next week. But thanks for stopping by.
100.